The history of the pen. Hello and welcome to this episode in my Iconic Inventions playlist of hidden history, the channel that explores what the textbook ignores. I'm your host, Andria Redlin. I am an author, graphic arts student, history buff, and an unashamed cat lover, meow, who loves to dive into the details of history that you will not find in the textbooks. The weirder, the better. Basically, I'm here to teach you a few things about history and actually have you stay awake, maybe even laugh a little. So strap in, buckle up, and come with me as we explore the origins of the writing pen. Ooh, how exciting. So writing used to be a lot harder than it is today. Nowadays, when we want to jot something down, we either whip out our Bic. What'd you think I said? I said Bic, B-I-C, as in Bic pen. So we whip out our Bic, or we use a stylus on a smartphone. But back in ye olden times, the process of writing anything down was a lot more involved. Now, as somebody who has had lots of years of experience using these old-fashioned means of writing, yes, I was weird, I can definitely vouch for the effort it takes. Now today, we're going on a brief tour of each of the primitive methods of writing that will take us from ancient times all the way to next week. Number 1, clay tablets. Also known as cuneiforms, clay tablet writing was the very first method of writing, which was developed around 3200 BC by Sumerian scribes in the ancient city-state of Uruk, or modern-day Iraq. Styluses made from reeds were pressed into the clay, creating different wedge-shaped symbols that would form letters and words. Clay tablet writing stuck around for about 3,000 years, which is a lot longer than my house can stay clean for, but they didn't last too much longer than that. Now, the pros with clay tablets was characters and letters were easy to press into the clay, and once they were baked and dried, they were more durable and weatherproof than paper. They could last centuries or even millennia. Now, the cons with these was that, well, they were kind of fragile, so if you dropped one, it was history, literally. And they were permanent, so you really couldn't erase things once you stamped them into the clay. And you had to make these. You had to roll them out and cut them into rectangles to carve onto. Number 2, wax tablets. Now picture a small school writing slate from ye olden days, only where the chalk writing surface is, you'll find a flat area of wax. Think of it as the world's first reusable notepad. Now the wax's surface was written on with a pointed stylus, which could be made of wood, ivory, bone, or metal, and it was often flat at one end for erasing, or what could really be called erasing. I will explain later. The earliest known archaeological find of one of these tablets was from the 14th century BC, and they were used up until the 19th century. Yep, Victorian times. Now, these were pretty good. They were a distinct improvement on the clay tablets because all you had to do to erase them was, lay them out in the sun. In this day and age, you'd probably just leave it in a hot car. Or you could heat the end of your stylus, the flat end, and then just kind of scrape over the writing and they would smooth it out. The surface of the wax wouldn't look as good when you were done, but at least you'd be able to rewrite on it again. They were also portable, cheap to make. They're actually pretty easy to make. I've made a few myself using melted beeswax and red candle wax dye to make it, look pretty. Because when you scrape on the surface of the wax, you get a lighter color than the wax itself. And I gotta say, they're really fun to write on, and they're very practical for many eras of historical reenactments, from ancient Roman times to the Middle Ages. Now the cons. Sometimes they're kind of hard to read, especially after they've been erased a couple of times, and that could be kind of difficult. Like I said, you needed heat to really erase them and make that surface glow smooth as a baby's butt again. Now, number 3, the reed pen. After centuries of using cumbersome clay tablets and high-maintenance wax tablets, people began searching for easier methods of writing and recording information. I don't blame them. Thus, the reed pen, which was the very first type of dip pen, was born. These were made, obviously, from reed or bamboo, and the earliest known reed pen was used in Egypt in the 4th century BC. They were used chiefly on papyrus, which was one of the first types of paper invented. Now, these were pretty cool because they were lightweight. They could write larger letters as the nib, which is the point of where the ink comes out. They could be carved larger, and they were economical. I mean, just go to any pond and you'll find some reeds there. Now, the cons. Writing small could be difficult because they were easily broken. You had to carve them large, and it took a great deal of skill to carve them, and they also wore out quickly. Number 4, quills. Although reed pens were a huge jump from tablets, it was the feather quill that soon made them move over during the Middle Ages. Nowadays, reed pens are mainly used by artists. Feather quills, which are another type of dip pen, were a significant improvement, though it's hard to pinpoint exactly when the first ones appeared. Most think it was sometime in the 6th century. But others say that some of the Dead Sea Scrolls were written with quills in the 2nd century. Whenever they were invented, they soon outwrote the reed pen for many reasons. They were lightweight, readily available, lasted longer than a reed pen, used less ink, smaller writing was now possible, and the tip of the pen flexed, which allowed for strokes both thick and thin, such as in the copperplate script. The cons were, well, they had to be recut occasionally, and they could still be messy. Actually, just about all of these methods of writing involving a pen were quite messy. Number 5, metal nib dip pens. Now, quills were pretty cool and great for those Harry Potter reenactments, but as the world grew more and more modern and commercial products became more readily available, metal nib pens soon came along in the 18th century and blew those feathery counterparts right out of the inkwell. Unlike feather quills that had to be recut often when they would wear down, metal nib pens did not require this type of maintenance. In fact, they really don't require much maintenance at all, except for wiping the ink from the nib when you were finished with the pen for the day. Those pens were also more aesthetically pleasing because they could have handles made of, varnished wood, bone, they could be painted, and if you were really rich, you can make them out of gold. It's your money. Now, today, the tips are made from steel, though back in the old days, they were made from copper and bronze. Now, unlike fountain pens, which will be discussed in the next section, you can change the color of ink used very easily. Simply wipe off the last ink color used, then switch to a new color. This makes these pens popular with artists today. It also makes them popular with me, because I love them. The only real disadvantage they have is that they need to be frequently dipped in order for you to keep writing. So about every sentence or so, and you do get the occasional ink blot. Not very fun. Now, later on, dip pens made from glass were used, and those could often write half a page of text before redipping. Unfortunately, they would also shatter when you dropped one. Like when my cat walks across the desk and decides to play with it and knock it on the floor. Not fun either. Now that we're about halfway through our tour, it's time to briefly introduce our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Winter Moon Designs, link below, where you will find apparel, gifts, and hidden history merchandise. We hope you'll continue to support the channel and make it possible to create more exciting content just for you. Who else did you think I was going to make it for? And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, that sounded so official. Okay, fountain pens. These are, by far, my most favorite writing method on the planet because they combine nostalgia, beauty, practicality, environmental friendliness, all in the same package. And I might just do a video on fountain pens alone someday. Don't tempt me. I just might do it. I just love them. environmentally friendly. A single bottle of ink, which you can refill these pens with, can last months or even years. They're ergonomic. You never get a hand cramp when you're writing with a fountain pen. No pinky cramps. They don't require dipping at all. And they have a lot of wide varieties to choose from. You can get, gold ones, plastic ones, every color of the rainbow you could find. There is a pen out there for every personality, and I want all of them. Unfortunately, fountain pens, they do have to be disassembled and cleaned every time they're refilled, which is really not that hard. It just takes a little time. And you do have to watch what kind of ink you use. Only used dye-based inks because if the wrong type of ink is used, they can become clogged with no hope of resurrection. So always buy your ink from a reputable dealer. Alrighty, now the ballpoint pens. Currently, the ballpoint pen is the most widely used tool for writing. They were invented in 1888. They're actually patented at the time. Unfortunately, that design in 1888 was so primitive and impractical at the time that it wasn't until 1945 that the very first commercial ballpoint pen in the US hit the stores, and they sold for $12.50 each, which is about $180 in today's money. Gosh, for that much cash, that thing better never run out of ink. Well, it actually only needed refilling once every 2 years, but God, that's a lot of money. But you know how now novelty items are expensive at their debut. I mean, remember when VCRs were $800? As you might imagine, these new fangle-dangle pens sold even faster than hotcakes, and I don't need to tell you their pros and cons, since you're probably sitting within a 4-foot radius of one, provided you can find it. You know how you can never find one when you need one, even if you own a few hundred? Yep. And last but not least, electronic pens, which are styluses and tablets like Wacom and stuff like that. Now, ballpoints became and remain popular, but once the digital age took over, we got to see the emergence of digital pens that don't so much write on paper, but point them at a tablet, and your words magically appear on the screen in front of you. These bad boys have been immensely helpful to digital artists and graphic designers like me. And they also keep a lot of ballpoint pens out of the landfills, which is always a plus. They also keep you from losing your shopping list. The final chapter, right on. So, we know you have all used a ballpoint pen, and perhaps an electronic one, but I'm curious, how many of you have tried some of those more ancient methods of writing I discussed? The clay tablets, the wax tablets, the dip pen? As for me, I have tried every one on the list over the years since I was about 13, and I have to say that the fountain pen will always be my favorite. Being both an artist and a writer, they've served me well in many creative endeavors, and my collection numbers to about a dozen, and I've got about 15 bottles of ink. Yes, I think I have a problem. I've been hitting the bottle, but not that kind of bottle, this kind. And one of my favorite companies, and most reputable, to purchase both ink and fountain pens from is the Goulet Pen Company, which I've linked below. No, they haven't sponsored this video. I just wanted to give them a shout out as a big thank you for being such a great company to shop from. They not only have high quality products, but they also teach you how to use them with their various videos on the site. And I like that. Well, my hidden ones, that's all I have for you today in this iconic inventions episode of Hidden History. Thanks for listening, and I definitely appreciate a share. And maybe a couple subscribers, that would be wonderful. And if there are any inventions out there that you'd love to know the history behind, hit me in the comments. Until next time, stay hidden.